Before the advent of air and spaceflight, we had to make our maps from the ground, while exploring the areas in question on foot or on a boat, and with no way of truly knowing if we actually got it right. So it's pretty much inevitable that cartographers would have screwed things up here and there along the way. Some of these mistakes even made their way into legend, like Atlantis, El Dorado, and Lemuria. These mistakes range from islands that aren't actually there, to getting the shapes of continents wrong, to imagining whole entire continents that never actually existed. So what were some of the biggest blunders we made on our way to understanding the shape of the Earth? Brought to you by NordVPN. Australia is a massive island dominated by numerous different features, from the lush eastern portions where everyone lives, to the vast expanse of desert and shrublands popularly known as the Outback, to the great inland sea in the north. Except that last one doesn't actually exist. So why did people think it did? Well, while Australia was colonized by the British not long after their discovery of said livable eastern portions, information about Australia's geography for most of the 19th century was generally limited to the coastal regions. Going inland from the newly settled colonies in modern-day New South Wales and Queensland, European explorers discovered rivers like the Castlereagh, Macquarie, and Bogan, and noticed that, despite their proximity to the Pacific coast, they all went westward away from the coast. Extrapolating on this knowledge, or lack thereof, former East India Company officer Thomas J. Maslin drew up a map depicting a great river sprouting from a lake the size of a small sea, and flowing westward into the Indian Ocean. The thinking at least makes sense. After all, Europe has the Danube, Africa has the Nile, Asia has several examples, North America has the Mississippi, and South America has the Amazon, so why wouldn't Australia have a great river of its own? Well, while Australia certainly has no shortage of rivers, the rivers Maslin observed actually flow into the Murray River as part of the Murray-Darling Basin, which empties out into the Southern Ocean in the South Australian town of Goolwa near Adelaide, but alas, not forming a large lake to make the outback habitable along the way. Expeditions into the interior of the island continents also showed that where there was supposedly a lake and fertile farmland, all there was desert and shrublands. And lake disappointment. In a sense, it was mostly just wishful thinking, with Maslin's book not even selling 250 copies. One explorer who was likely convinced of the idea, however, was Charles Sturt, who embarked on an expedition to find the sea in 1844, but all he found was what is now known as the Simpson Desert, with not a lake to be found. It is unlikely that even Maslin himself believed the idea for long, and it probably also didn't help much how he never actually visited Australia himself. On the other side of the world, a staggering 14-hour flight time away from Australia, lies the US state of California. Exploration of California, although this time by the Spanish, started up around the year 1530, with tentative missions sent under the command of Hernan Cortés, of Imperial Destruction fame. Around 20 years earlier, a popular romance novel called Las Cercas de Esplandian, or The Adventures of Esplandian, detailed a particular mythical island. As the book describes it,
know that to the right of the Indies there is an island called California, very close to the side of the earthly paradise, and its inhabitants were black women without a single man, for they lived in the manner of the Amazons. There, the island is the most formidable in the world, with its steep cliffs and stony shores. Their weapons are all made of gold, as are the harnesses they use to tame their wild beasts, because there is no other metal other than gold.
God, their tools must have absolutely sucked in that case. Nonetheless, when Cortés and the explorers he sent to survey the area west of Mexico, Diego de Becerra and Fortun Ximénez, found and explored the peninsula of Baja California, it was this very accurate legend of an island called California they had in mind. When they landed on the southern part of the modern Mexican state of Baja California Sur meaning south, in 1533, de Becerra and Ximénez believed they had found an island surrounded by the sea on all sides, and so brought this information back with them to Cortés in what was then called New Spain. A follow-up expedition by Francisco de Ulloa, however, was launched shortly afterward, with de Ulloa tracing the coast until finding the mouth of the Colorado River, concluding that California was definitely not an island. Realizing their easy mistake, Spanish cartographers quickly started publishing maps correctly showing California as being connected to the rest of the Americas. But at the beginning of the next century, something weird started to happen. In 1622, Antonio de la Ascensión wrote an account of Sebastián Vizcaíno's 1602 voyage, which he had been on board, describing California as separated by the North American mainland by the Mediterranean Sea of California. The vessel carrying these dubious records, however, was hijacked by the Dutch and brought back to Amsterdam, where Amsterdam-based bookseller Michiel Collijn started to publish maps depicting California once again as an island, followed by many more over the coming decades, even into the 18th century. That is, until, with mounting evidence from subsequent voyages to the region, King Ferdinand VI of Spain made an official decree that California was not an island. So shut up about it already, he presumably said. Also, one fact I find kind of funny is how there's the US state of California, then to the south there's the Mexican state of Baja California, with Baja meaning low or lower, and below that Baja California Sur, or Low California South. Because all good mini lists consist of threes, let's finish off in the Indian Ocean, with a land conceived not by explorers, but by scientists. Philip Sclater was not a geographer or a geologist, and the world had already been pretty well mapped by this time, but he was an incredibly accomplished and well-respected ornithologist, bird scientist, having served as secretary of the Zoological Society of London for 42 years, having written over 1,000 papers, books, and articles, and credited for numerous popular theories in the world of biology. He also had 7 different species named after him. Does he sound impressive yet? In 1864, Sclater noticed something a bit odd with fossils of lemurs and other similar primates, particularly in their distribution. In short, he noticed that fossils had been found aplenty in their native homeland of Madagascar, but also far away in India, way too far for significant populations of small primates to swim, especially given that there were no such fossils on mainland Africa. Now, had he been born maybe 50 to 100 years later, his answer would have been simple: continental drift. The earliest ancestors of lemurs likely first evolved in either the Paleocene or Eocene epochs, around 50 to 60 million years ago, back when the world looked like this. When the southern hemisphere supercontinent Gondwana broke up about 100 million years earlier, over the course of the late Jurassic and early Cretaceous, Madagascar actually broke off from Africa nearly 80 million years before breaking off from India. So that, and the fact that the Indian fossils weren't actually lemurs, they were just similar species of primate, is our explanation for all this according to modern science. The problem for Sclater, though, was that the scientist who had come up with the idea of continental drift, Alfred Wegener, was only negative 16 years old, and so quite understandably hadn't yet come up with this theory that would take decades to be taken seriously anyway. Groups of animals can spread to other landmasses a short ways away through what are called rafting events, but not this far. Thus, Sclater posited the previous existence of a giant sunken landmass connecting India and Madagascar, and as such he named it Lemuria. Other scientists also made use of this idea, such as Ernst Haeckel, who used a similar hypothesis to explain the origins of the human species, believing this sunken continent to be the home of the so-called missing link between humans and other primates, although it turns out he was actually looking about 2,000 kilometers too far to the east. Though the idea was initially accepted by many in the scientific community before the theory of plate tectonics, where it really caught attention was in less scientific circles. Russo-American co-founder of the Theosophical Society, Madame Helen Blavatsky, described Lemuria as encompassing most of the Indian Ocean and being home to an ancient race known as the Lemurians. Coincidentally, this landmass also matched with ancient texts from the Tamil people on the southern tip of India, describing a sunken continent called Kumari Kandam, driving beliefs that the Tamil people were the closest to where the first humans came from, and which I'm sure you can learn all about in the comments below. Yeah, this is a really fun place to end the video, that's for sure. Also, by the way, much of the information for this video came from this book, The Phantom Atlas, written by the almost offensively British-sounding Edward Brooke-Hitching. Thanks to my YouTube friend Byron Lewis for suggesting it, by the way. If you're interested in these sort of mythical landmasses and geographic mistakes, I would definitely recommend getting yourself a copy. And if this video does well, I myself might get quite a few videos out of this. Though of course I should note that this book or Edward Brooke-Hitching are not the sponsor of this video. Actually, that would be NordVPN. I know this war has been tough on us all. I know most of you want nothing more than to go home. But at last, we stand at the gates of Darksopolis. At last, after years of fighting, we are ready to besiege the great city of the hackers and stalkers. And for that, I couldn't be more proud to have fought under the banner of NordVPN. The great VPN of the North has helped us stay safe from thieves and bandits on this campaign, and has given us our own network tunnels to fight our way through the walls of fire into other lands. But at what cost? At what cost did it all come? By invoking the ancient god KhAnubis at nordvpn.com/KhAnubis, they have given us their undying loyalty for the past 2 years, and they have even given us another month for free, all at a massive discount. What say you, brave soldiers? Was that not the best exchange our army has thus far made? We fight the hackers, we fight the stalkers, we fight the spies, and we tell them that they may take our lives, but they will never take our internet security!